Hashtag First Contact seemed peaceful until Earth's dark fleet struck. Ambassador HFY of the Galactic Confederation stood at the observation deck of the diplomatic vessel Harmony's Voice, watching the small blue planet rotate slowly beneath them. Earth looked so peaceful from orbit, its white clouds swirling over green and brown continents, completely unaware that today would change everything for both humanity and the galaxy at large. "Beautiful world," commented Captain Vexona, her scaled hands clasped behind her back as she joined the ambassador. Hard to believe such a young species could have developed space travel so recently. HFY nodded, his 4 eyes tracking the primitive space stations orbiting the planet. The humans had only achieved reliable orbital flight within the last century, making them practically infants compared to most Confederation species. Their technology was crude but functional, their society fragmented into competing nations rather than the unified planetary governments that characterized most spacefaring civilizations. The preliminary scans show approximately 8 billion individuals, HFY said, consulting his datapad. Multiple languages, numerous political divisions, and a concerning history of warfare. However, their recent achievements in quantum communication and fusion energy suggest they're ready for contact. The Confederation had been watching humanity for the past 50 years, ever since their first radio signals had reached the listening posts on Kepler 442b. The standard protocol was clear: observe a species until they achieved certain technological and social benchmarks, then initiate peaceful contact. Humanity had recently crossed those thresholds, making them eligible for membership in the galactic community. Captain Vexona gestured toward the tactical display showing Earth's immediate orbital space. Their military capabilities appear limited to their own solar system. A few armed satellites, some ballistic missile platforms on the surface, but nothing that could threaten interstellar vessels. The risk assessment shows minimal threat potential. This was standard procedure. The Confederation had contacted over 300 species throughout the galaxy, and the pattern was always the same. Initially, there would be fear and suspicion from the newly discovered species, followed by wonder and gratitude as they were introduced to advanced technologies and galactic civilization. Some species adapted quickly, others took generations, but all eventually found their place in the larger community. Humanity would be no different. "Begin the approach," HFY ordered. "Standard First Contact Protocol. We'll establish orbit and transmit the universal greeting in their primary languages." The Harmony's Voice began its descent toward Earth's upper atmosphere, its shields shimmering as they deflected the thin air molecules. The ship itself was a marvel of Confederation engineering, designed specifically for diplomatic missions. Its organic curves and bioluminescent markings were meant to appear non-threatening, while its advanced sensors could analyze everything from atmospheric composition to social media trends on the planet below. Meanwhile, in the depths of space beyond Neptune, something else stirred in response to the alien vessel's approach. Hidden in the shadow of the gas giant, a massive structure that had remained dormant for decades suddenly came to life. Systems that had been running on minimal power began cycling up to full operational status, while quantum communication arrays started transmitting coded signals to receiving stations throughout the solar system. Admiral Sarah Chun stood in the command center of the deep space installation known as Titan Base, watching the holographic display that showed the approaching alien vessel. The base had been humanity's best-kept secret for over 30 years, built in the wake of the first confirmed detection of extraterrestrial intelligence. While Earth's surface governments squabbled over territory and resources, a shadow organization known as the Terran Defense Initiative had been preparing for this exact moment. "Contact confirmed," reported Commander Jackson, his fingers dancing across the tactical console. "Single vessel, approximately 2 kilometers in length, unknown propulsion system. They're broadcasting on multiple frequencies in what appears to be attempts at communication." Admiral Chin nodded grimly. She had been born into this job, raised from childhood to command humanity's hidden defenses. While the world above celebrated their achievements in space exploration and scientific advancement, the TDI had been developing technologies that would make their alien visitors think twice about any hostile intentions. "Are they scanning?" she asked. "Passive sensors only," Jackson replied. They appear to be following standard diplomatic protocols. No active targeting systems detected. Chen allowed herself a small smile. Of course they weren't targeting anything. Why would they? From space, Earth looked exactly like what it was supposed to look like, a primitive world with a young species just beginning to explore beyond their home planet. The aliens had no idea that humanity had been preparing for their arrival for decades. The truth was that humanity had detected the Confederation's observation posts years ago. Advanced telescopes had spotted the artificial structures, and sophisticated listening equipment had intercepted their communications. Earth's greatest minds had worked in secret to decode alien technology and develop countermeasures, all while maintaining the illusion of a species just beginning to reach for the stars. Signal from Earth Command, reported the communications officer. All surface governments have been notified and are responding according to protocol. Admiral Chun watched as the alien ship entered Earth's atmosphere and began broadcasting its universal greeting. The message was surprisingly sophisticated, using mathematical concepts and visual imagery to convey peaceful intentions. It spoke of friendship, knowledge sharing, and humanity's place in a larger galactic community. On Earth's surface, the response was exactly what the aliens would expect. Government officials scrambled to respond. Scientists analyzed the transmissions with wonder and excitement, and news media covered the historic moment with breathless enthusiasm. To any observer, it would appear that humanity was experiencing its first contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. But deep in hidden facilities around the world, a different kind of response was taking shape. The Terran Defense Initiative had been established following a simple principle: hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. While diplomacy would be attempted, humanity would not be caught defenseless if these aliens prove hostile. The TDI had spent decades developing technology that could challenge even advanced alien civilizations, using principles reverse-engineered from intercepted communications and careful observation of alien vessels. Dr. Elizabeth Reeves stood in the research facility beneath the Swiss Alps, watching as her team made final preparations to the quantum drive systems that would power humanity's response fleet. She had devoted her life to understanding alien technology, pushing the boundaries of human science beyond what should have been possible for such a young species. Quantum cores are stable, reported her lead technician. All ships in the Dark Fleet are reporting ready status. The Dark Fleet, humanity's secret weapon, built in the depths of space using materials mined from asteroids and construction techniques that combined human ingenuity with alien principles. Each ship was a masterpiece of stealth technology and advanced weaponry, designed to remain undetectable until the moment they chose to reveal themselves. Dr. Reeves had always hoped this day would never come. She had spent years studying the intercepted alien communications, learning about the Galactic Confederation and its member species. By all accounts, they appear to be a peaceful organization dedicated to exploration and cooperation. But history had taught humanity that first impressions could be deceiving, and the survival of the species was too important to leave to chance. "How many ships are in position?" she asked. 12 carriers, 60 destroyers, and 300 fighters, her technician replied, all equipped with quantum shields and displacement weapons. They're spread throughout the outer solar system, maintaining radio silence. Back aboard the Harmony's voice, Ambassador HFY was pleased with humanity's initial response. The various Earth governments had reacted with the expected mixture of caution and excitement, and preliminary communications suggested they would be open to formal diplomatic relations. Everything was proceeding exactly according to Confederation protocols. The humans appear to be remarkably unified in their response, Captain Vexona observed. For a species with such a history of conflict, they're showing impressive cooperation. HFY nodded, though something nagged at the back of his mind. The response was almost too perfect, too coordinated. In his experience, newly contacted species usually displayed more chaos and disagreement during first contact. There would be factions that wanted to attack the aliens, others that wanted to worship them, and still others that wanted to hide from them entirely. Humanity's response seemed unusually measured and organized. "Perhaps they've matured more than our initial assessment suggested," he said finally. It would be refreshing to contact a species that doesn't require decades of careful guidance to achieve basic cooperation. The diplomat's words proved to be prophetic, though not in the way he intended. Unknown to him, humanity's cooperation was indeed the result of decades of careful preparation, but not the kind the Confederation usually provided. The species they thought they were discovering had been aware of their existence for years and had spent that time preparing for this exact moment. As the first day of official contact drew to a close, both sides maintained their respective facades. The aliens continued their diplomatic overtures, offering gifts of knowledge and technology while carefully assessing humanity's readiness for galactic citizenship. Meanwhile, humanity's visible representatives engaged in the careful dance of first contact, asking questions about alien society and expressing wonder at the advanced technologies on display. But beneath the surface, other preparations were being made. Admiral Chun received regular updates from monitoring stations throughout the solar system, tracking every movement of the alien vessel and analyzing its capabilities. Dr. Reeves supervised the final calibrations of weapons systems that existed only in theoretical models until recently. And, around the world, the members of the Terran Defense Initiative waited for the signal that would determine whether this historic day would end in celebration or warfare. The alien ship settled into a stable orbit around Earth, its crew settling in for what they expected to be a routine first contact mission. They had no idea that they were being watched by hundreds of invisible eyes, analyzed by some of the most advanced sensor systems ever created, and that their every transmission was being intercepted and decoded by human cryptographers who had been studying alien communications for decades. As night fell across Earth's surface, the planet appeared peaceful and serene from space. The lights of human cities twinkled like stars, while the aurora danced across the polar regions. It was a scene that had played out for billions of years, unchanged by the presence of visitors from beyond the stars. But appearances could be deceiving. In the darkness beyond the outer planets, humanity's dark fleet waited in perfect silence, their crews trained for years for this exact scenario. Each ship was a testament to human ingenuity and determination, incorporating technologies that the aliens would never expect a supposedly primitive species to possess. The stage was set for a confrontation that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of humanity and force both species to reconsider everything they thought they knew about first contact, diplomacy, and the true nature of the universe itself. Tomorrow would bring revelations that neither side was fully prepared for, and the peaceful facade of first contact would give way to a demonstration of humanity's true capabilities. The Galactic Confederation was about to learn why humanity had survived and thrived on a world where competition and conflict had shaped evolution for millions of years. They were about to discover that Earth's children were far more dangerous than their young civilization suggested, and that the peace they offered came with the implicit understanding that it could be withdrawn at any moment. The Dark Fleet waited in the void, and, with it, humanity's true introduction to the galaxy. The second day of first contact began with what appeared to be a diplomatic triumph. Ambassador HFY had established formal communication protocols with Earth's United Nations, and preliminary negotiations were underway for humanity's introduction to galactic society. The alien diplomat stood in the Harmony's Voice's main conference room, addressing a holographic assembly of Earth's most prominent leaders via quantum communication. The Galactic Confederation welcomes humanity into the community of civilized species, HFY announced, his translated words reaching every capital on Earth simultaneously. We offer knowledge, technology, and partnership in exploring the wonders of our galaxy. In return, we ask only for peaceful cooperation and adherence to the basic principles of interstellar law. President Martinez of the United Earth Coalition nodded respectfully from her position at the UN podium. We are honored by your invitation, Ambassador. Humanity has long dreamed of this moment, and we look forward to learning from your advanced civilization. The exchange was picture-perfect diplomacy, exactly the kind of first contact that the Confederation had experienced hundreds of times before. What made it particularly satisfying was humanity's apparent maturity. Unlike many species they had encountered, The humans showed no signs of the typical fears or aggressive postures that often complicated initial contact. They asked intelligent questions, showed genuine curiosity about galactic society, and seemed eager to contribute to the larger community. But beneath this diplomatic veneer, a different conversation was taking place on heavily encrypted channels that the aliens couldn't detect. Admiral Chin spoke directly with President Martinez through a quantum communication link that utilized technology the Confederation hadn't seen before. "How much longer do we need to maintain the facade?" Martinez asked quietly, her image flickering on Chin's personal display in Titan Base. "Dr. Reeves estimates another 6 hours to complete the analysis," Chin replied. "Her team has been studying their ship's systems nonstop since they arrived. We need to understand their full capabilities before we reveal our hand." The truth was that humanity's response to first contact was far more sophisticated than it appeared. While the aliens saw cooperative governments working together, what they were actually observing was the culmination of decades of preparation by the Terran Defense Initiative. Every word spoken by Earth's leaders had been carefully scripted, every question designed to extract maximum information about alien intentions and capabilities. Dr. Elizabeth Reeves worked feverishly in her underground laboratory, surrounded by holographic displays showing detailed scans of the alien vessel. Her team had been using advanced sensors hidden throughout Earth's orbital infrastructure to analyze every aspect of the ship's construction and operation. "Their quantum field generators are more advanced than our projections suggested," reported Dr. James Wong, her chief physicist. "But the power distribution patterns indicate they're operating at less than 30% capacity." "Weapons?" Reeves asked, not looking up from her analysis of the alien ship's defensive systems. "Minimal," Wong replied. "Standard energy projectors, probably intended for asteroid clearing or emergency defense. Nothing that suggests military capability." This was both reassuring and concerning. The aliens appeared to be genuinely peaceful, which aligned with decades of intercepted communications suggesting the Confederation was a benevolent organization. But their lack of military preparedness also indicated a disturbing level of confidence. They had approached Earth with virtually no defensive measures, suggesting they didn't consider humanity capable of posing any threat. That assumption was about to be tested. Dr. Reeves had spent years studying the psychological profiles of various alien species based on their communications and behavior patterns. The Galactic Confederation appeared to operate on the principle that advanced technology naturally led to peaceful behavior, and that any species capable of interstellar travel would have evolved beyond primitive aggression. It was a beautiful philosophy, but one that revealed a fundamental blind spot in their thinking. Humanity had achieved interstellar capability not by evolving beyond conflict, but by learning to harness it more efficiently. "Ma'am," called out Dr. Sarah Kim from her position at the communications array. "We're detecting additional transmissions from their ship. They're reporting back to their home base." "Put on screen," Reeves ordered. The intercepted transmission appeared as a series of complex waveforms that her computers quickly translated into comprehensible language. Ambassador HFY was filing his initial report with Confederation Command, and the content was revealing. First contact proceeding nominally. The ambassador's voice echoed through the laboratory. Human response indicates mature civilization ready for integration. Recommend standard technological uplift protocols. Species shows no signs of military aggression or territorial hostility. Estimated timeline for full membership, 18 to 24 months. Dr. Reeves smiled grimly. The aliens were so confident in their assessment that they were already planning humanity's integration into their society. They had no idea that the primitive species they were studying had been preparing for this moment for decades. "Dr. Reeves," her assistant called out, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Admiral Chun." The holographic image of Admiral Chun appeared in the center of the laboratory, her expression serious but determined. "Status report, Doctor. We've completed our analysis of their primary systems," Reeves replied. "Their ship is advanced, but not designed for combat. More importantly, we've confirmed that they're operating alone. No support fleet, no hidden weapons platforms. They're exactly what they appear to be, peaceful diplomats." Chin nodded. "That's consistent with our deep space monitoring. However, we've detected something else. Long-range sensors are picking up quantum signatures at the edge of the system. It appears we have additional visitors. This was the moment that would change everything. Dr. Reeves pulled up the long-range sensor data, and what she saw confirmed their worst fears. A massive fleet was approaching from deep space, moving at velocities that suggested advanced propulsion technology far beyond what the diplomatic vessel possessed. How many ships? Reeves asked. Preliminary count suggests at least 50 vessels, Chen replied. And they're not broadcasting any diplomatic signals. The peaceful first contact was about to become something entirely different. The question was whether the approaching fleet represented additional Confederation forces sent to secure the new contact or something more sinister. Either way, humanity's response would need to adapt quickly. Initiate Condition Red, Chun ordered. All Dark Fleet units are to prepare for immediate deployment. Throughout the outer solar system, humanity's hidden fleet began to move. Ships that had remained motionless for years suddenly came to life, their crews manning stations they had trained on countless times but never expected to use. The vessels themselves were marvels of human engineering, incorporating principles learned from decades of studying alien technology while maintaining uniquely human innovations. Captain Maria Santos stood on the bridge of the TDI battleship Indomitable, watching as her crew prepared for what might be humanity's first interstellar battle. The ship had been built in secret using materials harvested from asteroids in the Kuiper Belt, its construction hidden from both Earth's surface governments and any alien observers. All systems green, reported Commander Williams from the tactical station. Quantum shields at full power, displacement weapons armed and ready. The displacement weapons were humanity's greatest technological achievement, devices that could manipulate space-time itself to devastating effect. Dr. Reeves had developed them based on theoretical principles observed in alien communications, but the actual implementation was purely human. Where alien technology focused on harmony and balance, human weapons were designed for maximum destructive potential. Captain, called out the communications officer, we're receiving updates from Titan Base. Admiral Chun confirms that the approaching fleet is not responding to Confederation hails. Unknown intentions. This changed everything. If the approaching ships weren't part of the Confederation, then the peaceful first contact scenario was compromised. Humanity would need to reveal its true capabilities much sooner than planned. Aboard the Harmony's Voice, Ambassador HFY was becoming increasingly concerned about the lack of response from his superiors. He had transmitted his initial contact report hours ago, and should have received acknowledgement by now. Instead, there was only silence from Confederation Command. Captain Vexona, he called out. Any word from headquarters? Nothing, Ambassador, she replied, her voice tense. Long-range communications are functioning normally, but we're not receiving any responses to our transmissions. This was unprecedented in Confederation history. Command always maintained contact with first contact missions, providing guidance and support throughout the delicate process of introducing a new species to galactic society. The silence was ominous. Sir, reported the navigation officer, we're detecting quantum signatures approaching from the outer system. Multiple contacts, unknown configuration. HFY felt a chill run through his spine. The approaching signatures didn't match any known Confederation vessels, and their approach vector suggested they had been waiting in the outer system rather than traveling from known space. Could there be another species operating in this region? Hail the approaching vessels, he ordered. The communications array broadcast standard Confederation identification codes and peaceful intent signals, but there was no response. The unknown fleet continued its approach, maintaining radio silence while closing distance at an alarming rate. Ambassador, Captain Vexona said quietly, I recommend we prepare for immediate departure. Our mission protocols don't cover this scenario. But before HFY could respond, something even more unexpected happened. The primitive human governments he had been negotiating with suddenly changed their entire demeanor. President Martinez appeared on his communication screen, but her expression was no longer one of wonder and gratitude. Ambassador HFY, she said formally, we need to discuss the current situation. It appears that your arrival has attracted unwanted attention. I don't understand, the ambassador replied. What unwanted attention? The fleet approaching from the outer system, Martinez said calmly. They're not yours, are they? HFY felt his blood run cold. How could the humans possibly know about the approaching fleet? Their sensor technology was supposed to be decades behind Confederation standards, barely capable of detecting objects beyond their own moon. How did you? He began, then stopped himself. I mean, we're detecting some unusual readings, but nothing that suggests hostile intent. Martinez smiled, and there's something in that expression that made the ambassador profoundly uncomfortable. Ambassador, I think it's time we had an honest conversation about the current situation. You see, humanity has been aware of your Confederation for quite some time, and we've been preparing for this day much longer than you realize. The holographic display in front of HFY suddenly changed, showing detailed technical readouts of his own ship that could only have been produced by extremely advanced sensor systems. The humans weren't just aware of the approaching fleet. They had been studying his vessel since the moment of arrival, analyzing its capabilities with technology that shouldn't have existed. This is impossible, Captain Vexona whispered. Their technology level doesn't allow for this kind of analysis. Actually, it does, came a new voice as another figure appeared on the communication screen. Admiral Chun wore a uniform that HFY didn't recognize, and her bearing suggested military authority far beyond anything they had expected from this young species. Allow me to introduce myself, Chun said formally. Admiral Sarah Chun, Terran Defense Initiative. We've been waiting for this conversation for a very long time. The peaceful first contact was over. The real negotiations were about to begin, and humanity was no longer playing the role of grateful recipients of alien wisdom. They were revealing themselves as something far more dangerous, a species that had been preparing for galactic contact while maintaining the perfect illusion of primitive innocence. The approaching fleet was now less than 6 hours away, and its intentions remained unknown. But one thing was certain. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity was not the helpless young species they appeared to be. The Dark Fleet was moving into position, weapons were being charged, and the most advanced military force in human history was preparing to announce itself to the universe. The Confederation was about to face their first real challenge in over 1,000 years, and they had no idea what they were up against. The revelation that humanity possessed advanced military capabilities sent shockwaves through the diplomatic vessel. Ambassador HFY stared at the holographic display, showing detailed scans of his own ship, data that should have been impossible for a species that had only recently achieved orbital flight. The implications were staggering. "How long have you known about us?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Admiral Chin's expression remained neutral as she responded. "We detected your observation posts in the Kepler system approximately 15 years ago. Since then, we've been monitoring your communications and studying your technology. We know about the Galactic Confederation, its member species, and its standard first contact protocols." Captain Vexona's scales shifted color, a sign of extreme distress among her species. "This violates every assumption in our contact procedures. Species aren't supposed to be aware of our presence until formal contact is initiated. Your assumptions," Dr. Reeves interjected as she joined the communication link, "were based on studying species that developed naturally without external pressure. Humanity's development was accelerated by the knowledge that we weren't alone in the universe. The truth was even more complex than the humans were revealing. The Terran Defense Initiative hadn't just discovered the alien observation posts. They'd been carefully feeding false information to them for years. Every transmission from Earth, every technological development that the aliens had observed had been carefully orchestrated to create the illusion of a primitive but promising species ready for contact. Meanwhile, humanity's real technological development had proceeded in complete secrecy. "The approaching fleet," HFY said, changing the subject to the more immediate threat. "They're not responding to our hails. We need to coordinate our response." Admiral Chin's expression hardened. "We've been analyzing their signatures. They match vessels from a species you call the Devourers. According to your own classified communications, they're a threat that the Confederation has been trying to contain for decades." The ambassador felt his heart skip a beat. The Devourers were the Confederation's darkest secret, a genocidal species that consumed entire civilizations for resources. They had been contained within a quarantined region of space for over a century. But if they had broken free and discovered Earth, that's classified information, Captain Vexona said weakly. How could you possibly? Your quantum encryption is advanced, Dr. Reeves admitted, but not unbreakable. We've been intercepting and decoding Confederation transmissions for years. We know about the Devourers, the containment protocols, and the fact that your peacekeeping forces have been stretched thin trying to maintain the quarantine. This was humanity's true strength. Not just their technological capability, but their intelligence gathering and analysis. While the Confederation had been observing Earth, humanity had been observing the entire galactic political situation. They understood the threats, the weaknesses, and the opportunities that existed in the wider galaxy. The Devourers must have detected your transmission to Earth, Admiral Chen continued. They're using your first contact mission as an opportunity to break containment and expand their territory. This isn't just a threat to humanity. It's a threat to your entire Confederation. The tactical situation was becoming clear. The Devourer fleet was approaching Earth not just to destroy humanity, but to establish a forward base in an undefended system. From here, they could launch attacks against Confederation worlds that had grown complacent after centuries of peace. We need to evacuate immediately, HFY said urgently. Our ship isn't equipped for combat, and your species lacks the technology to resist a Devourer assault. Admiral Chen smiled, and there was something predatory in that expression that made the alien diplomats profoundly uncomfortable. Actually, Ambassador, we've been preparing for this exact scenario for quite some time. Humanity doesn't lack the technology to resist the Devourers. We've been developing it specifically to fight them. The holographic display changed again, this time showing the deployment of humanity's dark fleet. Hundreds of vessels were moving through the outer solar system, their stealth systems making them nearly invisible until they chose to reveal themselves. The ships were unlike anything in the Confederation's database, incorporating design principles that seemed to blend alien technology with uniquely human innovations. This is impossible, Captain Vexona breathed, studying the fleet composition. These vessels show technological sophistication beyond most Confederation member species. How could a species isolated from galactic civilization develop such advanced systems? Necessity, Admiral Chen replied simply. We knew that eventually we would encounter hostile aliens. The peaceful nature of your Confederation is admirable, but it also represents a fundamental vulnerability. You've forgotten how to fight. The truth was that humanity had never stopped fighting. While other species had evolved beyond conflict through technological advancement or social development, humans had learned to channel their aggressive instincts into more sophisticated forms. The Terran Defense Initiative represented the culmination of human military thinking, combining the species' natural aptitude for warfare with advanced alien technology. Dr. Reeves brought up additional displays showing the technical specifications of human weapon systems. Our displacement cannons can manipulate space-time to create localized implosions. Our quantum torpedoes phase through conventional shielding. Our fighters are equipped with AI systems that can process combat data faster than biological reflexes can respond. Each weapon system represented years of theoretical development followed by rapid practical implementation once alien technology became available for study. Human scientists had taken Confederation principles of quantum mechanics and energy manipulation and weaponized them in ways their original developers had never imagined. You've turned our own technology against us, HFY observed with a mixture of horror and admiration. We've improved it, Chen corrected. Your technology is designed for exploration and peaceful cooperation. Ours is designed for survival. The approaching Devourer fleet was now close enough for detailed analysis, and what the sensors revealed was truly terrifying. 50 massive vessels, each one capable of reducing a planet's surface to molten slag. Their ships were organic in appearance, grown rather than built, with weapon systems that could drain the energy from entire star systems. Estimated time to engagement? Chen asked her tactical officer. 4 hours, 37 minutes at current approach velocity, came the reply. The Devourers weren't trying to hide their approach or their intentions. Their ships broadcast continuous threat displays, transmissions designed to terrorize potential victims into surrender. The messages spoke of consumption, absorption, and the conversion of all matter into resources for the collective. They're transmitting surrender demands, reported the communications officer aboard the Harmony's voice. Standard Devourer protocol. Submit to absorption or face complete annihilation. Ambassador HFY turned to the human leaders with desperation in his eyes. You have to understand, the Devourers don't negotiate. They consume everything in their path. Even with your advanced technology, 50 ships represent overwhelming force. Admiral Chen's expression remained calm. Ambassador, you're thinking like a member of a peaceful civilization. You're assuming that overwhelming force determines the outcome of battle. She gestured to the tactical display, which now showed the full deployment of humanity's dark fleet. What had initially appeared to be a desperate defensive action was revealing itself to be something far more sophisticated, a carefully orchestrated trap. The Devourers are expecting to encounter a primitive human civilization protected by a single Confederation diplomatic vessel, Chen explained. They're not expecting to face a military force that's been preparing for this exact scenario for decades. Captain Maria Santos received her final briefing aboard the Indomitable, studying the tactical data that her crew had been drilling on for years. The Devourer fleet was powerful, but it was also predictable. Their tactics hadn't evolved in centuries because they had never encountered meaningful resistance. All ships report ready, Captain, Commander Williams announced. Dark Fleet is in position and maintaining stealth protocols. The human battle plan was elegant in its simplicity. The Devourers would approach Earth expecting to find easy prey, but instead would encounter a force specifically designed to exploit their weaknesses. Human ships were smaller and more maneuverable than Devourer vessels, equipped with weapons that could penetrate their organic armor and disrupt their energy absorption capabilities. Phase 1 is about to commence, Santos announced to her crew. Remember your training. These aliens have terrorized the galaxy for centuries, but they've never faced humanity before. Today we show them what that means. The first phase of the battle plan was deception. Humanity's visible space infrastructure would appear to shut down in panic, creating the illusion that Earth was defenseless. The alien diplomatic vessel would be allowed to broadcast distress calls, reinforcing the impression that this was a helpless system awaiting conquest. Meanwhile, the Dark Fleet would remain hidden, using advanced stealth technology to avoid detection until the optimal moment for engagement. Dr. Reeves monitored the operation from her command center, watching as decades of preparation finally came to fruition. All stealth systems are functioning normally, she reported. Devourer sensors show no indication they've detected our fleet. The aliens had made a fundamental error in their assessment of human capability. They had assumed that technological advancement followed predictable patterns, that species developed certain capabilities in a specific order. They had no framework for understanding a civilization that had leaped ahead in military technology while maintaining the illusion of primitive development in other areas. Dr. Reeves called out one of her technicians. We're receiving a transmission from the lead Devourer vessel. They're demanding immediate surrender from both the human government and the Confederation ship. The transmission was broadcast on all frequencies, ensuring that every receiver in the solar system would pick it up. The message was simple and terrifying: submit or die. It was accompanied by visual imagery of previous Devourer conquests, showing the complete destruction of civilizations that had dared to resist. Standard intimidation tactics, Admiral Chen observed. They're trying to break our will to fight before the battle even begins. But the Devourers had made a critical miscalculation. They were attempting to intimidate a species that had evolved through constant conflict, a civilization that had learned to thrive under pressure. The images of destroyed worlds didn't terrify humanity. They reinforced their determination to ensure that Earth would never suffer the same fate. Send a response, Chen ordered. Tell them that humanity declines their generous offer. The response transmission was brief and to the point. Earth to Devourer fleet. Your terms are unacceptable. We suggest you reconsider your approach. The alien attackers paused in their advance, clearly surprised by the defiant response. Most species either surrendered immediately or attempted to flee when faced with Devourer demands. Open defiance was almost unheard of. They're scanning more aggressively now, reported the sensor officer, attempting to assess our defensive capabilities. The scans would reveal exactly what humanity wanted them to see: a primitive world with minimal space-based defenses, protected only by an alien diplomatic vessel that was clearly not designed for combat. The Devourers would conclude that human defiance was based on ignorance rather than capability. They would learn otherwise soon enough. The final piece of the deception was about to be revealed. As the Devourer fleet resumed its approach, confident in their overwhelming advantage, humanity's true response was taking shape in the darkness beyond the outer planets. The Dark Fleet was moving into final position, their crews trained and ready for the most important battle in human history. Admiral Chen looked out at the approaching enemy fleet and allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. For decades, humanity had lived with the knowledge that they were alone in a hostile universe. Today, they would prove that being alone didn't mean being helpless. The Devourer fleet entered the inner solar system with the confidence of apex predators approaching defenseless prey. Their massive bioships moved in perfect formation, organic hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that served as both communication systems and psychological warfare displays. For over 1,000 years, these ships had been instruments of galactic terror, and their crews had no reason to expect this encounter to be any different. Fleet Commander Vorthak stood in the neural command center of the flagship Death's Hunger, his consciousness linked directly to the ship's sensory systems. Through this connection, he could perceive the small blue world ahead and the pathetic defensive measures its inhabitants had prepared. A single alien diplomatic vessel and some primitive orbital platforms were all that stood between his fleet and another successful harvest. The prey species shows minimal resistance capability, reported his tactical coordinator through their neural link. Biomass readings indicate approximately 8 billion viable specimens for absorption. Estimated harvest duration, 72 standard cycles. Vorthak allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Earth's population would provide substantial resources for the collective, and the planet's diverse biosphere would offer interesting genetic material for incorporation into their ever-evolving fleet. The humans had shown unusual defiance in their communications, but that would only make their eventual absorption more satisfying. Commence standard intimidation protocols, he commanded. I want this species to understand the futility of resistance before we begin the harvest. The Devourer ships began broadcasting their full-spectrum terror transmissions, filling space with signals designed to induce panic and despair in any sentient beings within range. The broadcasts included detailed imagery of previous conquests, showing the systematic consumption of entire civilizations and the integration of their biological and technological resources into the collective. Aboard the Harmony's voice, Ambassador HFY watched the approaching fleet with growing horror. He had read classified reports about Devourer capabilities, but seeing their ships in person was a profoundly different experience. The organic vessels seemed to pulse with malevolent life, their very presence distorting space around them. They're broadcasting absorption demands again, Captain Vexona reported, her voice shaking. They want us to land our ship and prepare for neural interface procedures. The Devourers didn't just kill their victims. They absorbed them, integrating their knowledge, memories, and biological characteristics into the collective consciousness. It was a fate worse than death, ensuring that their victims would remain aware even as they became part of the enemy fleet. Admiral Chun, HFY called out through the quantum communication link. Your fleet needs to engage now before they enter weapons range. Once they begin the absorption process, there may be no stopping them. But Admiral Chen's response was unexpected. Instead of ordering an immediate attack, she seemed almost relaxed. Actually, Ambassador, we want them to get a little closer first. Our weapons are more effective at shorter range. This seemed like madness to the Confederation officers. The accepted tactical doctrine for fighting Devourers was to engage at maximum range and avoid close contact at all costs. Their bioships became exponentially more dangerous as they approached, able to deploy absorption tendrils and neural disruption fields that could disable enemy vessels. What the aliens didn't understand was that humanity had studied Devourer tactics extensively through intercepted Confederation battle reports. Every engagement between the Confederation and the Collective had followed the same pattern. Long-range bombardments that failed to penetrate Devourer defenses, followed by desperate retreat as the bioships closed distance. No one had ever tried to fight them up close, because no one had ever developed weapons specifically designed for that purpose. Dr. Reeves monitored the enemy approach from her command center, watching as the Devourer fleet moved into the carefully prepared trap. Energy absorption fields are at maximum strength, she reported. They're trying to drain power from our orbital platforms. The Devourers had a unique ability to feed on energy itself, absorbing power from enemy weapons and using it to strengthen their own systems. This capability had made them nearly invincible against conventional forces, since any attack only served to make them stronger. But humanity's weapons weren't conventional. Phase 2 is go, Admiral Chun announced across all command frequencies. Dark Fleet, prepare for revelation. Throughout the outer solar system, humanity's hidden fleet began to drop their stealth fields. One by one, ships that had been invisible to all sensors suddenly blazed into existence, their quantum signatures appearing like stars being born in the darkness of space. The Devourer fleet detected the new contacts immediately, but their initial reaction was confusion rather than alarm. The signatures didn't match any known Confederation vessel types, and the ships themselves were unlike anything in their vast database of conquered civilizations. Unknown contacts detected, reported the Devourer tactical coordinator. Configuration suggests non-standard technology. Analyzing threat potential. Fleet Commander Vorthak extended his consciousness to examine the new arrivals more closely. The ships were clearly artificial rather than biological, with angular designs that emphasize function over the organic curves preferred by most spacefaring species. Their power signatures were unusual, suggesting energy systems based on principles the collective hadn't encountered before. Assessment. Minimal threat potential, the tactical coordinator concluded. Ships appear to be primitive warships with limited armament. Recommend ignoring secondary contacts and proceeding with primary harvest. This was exactly the response humanity had hoped for. The Dark Fleet ship designs were intentionally deceptive, appearing crude and primitive to casual observation while concealing advanced systems within their armored hulls. The Devourers were making the same mistake as every other alien species, underestimating human capability based on appearance. Captain Santos stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching as her ship dropped stealth and revealed itself to the enemy fleet. Around her, the crew worked with practiced efficiency, bringing weapons systems online and preparing for engagement. They had trained for this moment for years, but seeing 50 Devourer bioships in person was still an intimidating sight. All weapons report ready, Commander Williams announced. Displacement cannons are charged, quantum torpedoes loaded, and fighter bays are prepared for launch. Contact the fleet, Santos ordered. All ships are to maintain current positions until the enemy enters optimal firing range. Remember, we only get one chance at surprise. The key to the human battle plan was timing. The Dark Fleet needed to remain hidden until the Devourers were committed to their attack on Earth, too close to retreat when humanity revealed its true capabilities. It was a dangerous gamble, but one based on careful study of Devourer psychology and tactics. Enemy fleet is now within optimal range, reported the tactical officer. Distance, 100,000 kilometers, and closing. Admiral Chun took a deep breath and opened the command channel to all ships in the Dark Fleet. All vessels, this is Admiral Chun. Today we face an enemy that has terrorized the galaxy for 1,000 years. They believe they are apex predators, but they have never encountered humanity before. Show them what happens when they threaten Earth. She paused, looking out at the approaching enemy fleet. Dark Fleet, you are cleared to engage. Protect our world. The response was immediate and devastating. Hundreds of human ships opened fire simultaneously, their weapons systems unleashing energies that the Devourers had never encountered before. Displacement cannons created localized space-time distortions that bypassed energy absorption fields entirely, while quantum torpedoes phased through bioarmor to detonate inside enemy vessels. The lead Devourer ship, Payne's Harvest, was the first to experience humanity's true capabilities. A displacement cannon strike created a small black hole inside its organic hull, the gravitational forces tearing the ship apart from within. The bioship's healing capabilities, normally able to repair any damage, were useless against weapons that attacked the fundamental structure of space-time itself. Fleet Commander Vorthak felt his flagship dying around him, its neural networks screaming in agony as the ship's living systems collapsed. Through the collective consciousness, he could sense similar destruction occurring throughout his fleet as human weapons found their targets with devastating precision. Impossible, he transmitted to the surviving ships. These weapons should not exist. No species has ever developed such technology. But the humans weren't finished. As the first wave of displacement cannon strikes crippled the larger bioships, human fighter squadrons launched their own attack. The small craft were equipped with AI pilots that could process combat data faster than any biological brain, allowing them to engage multiple targets simultaneously while avoiding the Devourer's defensive systems. Lieutenant Sarah Kim piloted her fighter through the chaos of battle, her AI co-pilot calculating optimal attack vectors while she focused on weapon deployment. Her target was a medium-sized bioship that was attempting to retreat after witnessing the destruction of its larger companions. Target locked, her AI announced. Quantum torpedoes armed and ready. Fire, Kim commanded, and watched as her weapons phased through the enemy's armor to detonate inside its neural core. The bioship convulsed once, and then went dark, its consciousness extinguished by the quantum explosion. The battle was becoming a rout. The Devourer fleet, accustomed to easy victories against terrified prey, found themselves facing an enemy that had been specifically designed to counter their advantages. Human weapons ignored their energy absorption fields, human tactics exploited their predictable behavior patterns, and human determination proved stronger than their psychological warfare techniques. Fleet Commander transmitted one of the surviving Devourer captains. "We are taking catastrophic losses. Recommend immediate withdrawal to regroup and analyze these new weapon systems." But retreat wasn't an option. The human fleet had positioned itself to prevent escape, using their superior speed and maneuverability to surround the Devourer formation. What had begun as a harvest operation was turning into a trap from which there might be no escape. Admiral Chen watched the battle unfold from Titan Base, allowing herself a moment of satisfaction as decades of preparation proved their worth. Tactical assessment, she requested. "Enemy fleet is down to 37 operational vessels," reported her tactical officer. "Our losses are minimal. 3 fighters damaged, no capital ships compromised. Enemy morale appears to be breaking." This was the moment humanity had been working toward since they first learned of the Devourer threat. Not just to defend Earth, but to demonstrate that the collective was not invincible. Other species throughout the galaxy had submitted to absorption because they believed resistance was futile. Today, humanity would prove them wrong. "Open a channel to the surviving Devourer ships," Chen ordered. "It's time for some psychological warfare of our own." The transmission reached every surviving bioship simultaneously, carrying a message that no Devourer had ever heard before: defiance backed by overwhelming force. "This is Admiral Sarah Chun of the Terran Defense Initiative," she announced. "You came to our system expecting to find easy prey. Instead, you have found predators. Your fleet is broken, your ships are dying, and your collective will remember this day as the beginning of the end." She paused, letting the words sink in. "You have a choice. Surrender now and face imprisonment, or continue fighting and face complete annihilation. You have 60 seconds to decide." The Devourers had never been offered surrender terms before. In their entire history, they had been the ones making demands, forcing other species to submit or die. The reversal of roles was profoundly disturbing to creatures that had defined themselves as apex predators. Fleet Commander Vorthak struggled to process what was happening. His consciousness, linked to the collective through quantum entanglement, could feel the confusion and fear spreading through the surviving ships. The Devourers had evolved beyond individual emotion, but they were still capable of recognizing when they faced superior force. Collective analysis indicates a 97% probability of total fleet destruction if hostilities continue, his tactical coordinator reported. "Human weapon systems show capabilities beyond our defensive parameters." The unthinkable was happening. The Devourer fleet was considering surrender to a species they had intended to harvest. The psychological impact would reverberate through the collective consciousness, potentially inspiring resistance among other species that had previously submitted without question. But there was another consideration. The humans had demonstrated capabilities that could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. If the collective could absorb even one human vessel and analyze its technology, prepare for desperate assault, Vorthak commanded. All ships are to ram the nearest human vessel and attempt boarding procedures. We must acquire samples of their technology at any cost. The surviving Devourer ships began their final attack, accelerating directly toward human vessels in suicidal charges designed to achieve physical contact. If they could board even one ship and absorb its crew, the knowledge gained might justify the loss of the entire fleet. But humanity had anticipated this possibility as well. As the bioships accelerated toward their targets, the human fleet demonstrated another capability that the Devourers hadn't expected: coordinated point defense systems that could track and intercept multiple targets simultaneously. The final phase of the battle lasted less than 10 minutes. Every Devourer ship that attempted a ramming attack was destroyed before it could reach its target, their organic hulls shredded by precision fire from human defense grids. The few vessels that tried to retreat were hunted down by fighter squadrons and destroyed with surgical precision. When the battle ended, 50 Devourer bioships had been reduced to expanding clouds of organic debris. Not a single human vessel had been seriously damaged, and casualties were measured in single digits rather than thousands. The galaxy's most feared predators had been utterly destroyed by a species they had dismissed as primitive prey. Admiral Chun stood in the command center of Titan Base, looking out at the debris field that had once been an unstoppable invasion fleet. Around her, her staff worked to coordinate cleanup operations and analyze the wreckage for intelligence purposes. Signal from the Confederation vessel, reported her communications officer. Ambassador HFY is requesting permission to board and discuss the implications of what just happened. Chen nodded. The real work was just beginning. The destruction of a Devourer fleet would send shockwaves through galactic civilization, and humanity would need to carefully manage the political ramifications of their demonstration. Grant permission, she ordered, and prepare a full briefing package on human military capabilities. It's time the Confederation understood what kind of allies they're dealing with. The Dark Fleet had struck, and the galaxy would never be the same. The aftermath of the battle brought an unprecedented silence to Earth's solar system. Where 50 Devourer bioships had once threatened the destruction of human civilization, now only expanding clouds of organic debris remained, slowly dissipating in the cold vacuum of space. Admiral Chun stood in the observation deck of Titan Base, watching as human recovery vessels began the careful process of analyzing the wreckage while maintaining security protocols that would prevent any remnant of Devourer consciousness from surviving. Preliminary analysis indicates complete destruction of all enemy vessels, reported Dr. Reeves as she joined the Admiral at the viewport. No detectable neural activity remains, and quantum scans show no signs of collective consciousness backup systems. This was crucial information. The Devourer's greatest advantage had always been their ability to preserve and transfer consciousness between vessels, allowing their collective knowledge to survive even catastrophic military defeats. The complete destruction of their fleet represented the first time in recorded galactic history that a Devourer force had been eliminated without any survivors to carry their experiences back to the collective. Ambassador HFY arrived at Titan Base 3 hours after the battle's conclusion, his diplomatic vessel docking with a secret facility under heavy escort from human fighter squadrons. The alien diplomat's first glimpse of the massive installation confirmed what he had already begun to suspect. Humanity's technological capabilities far exceeded anything the Confederation had imagined possible. This facility has been operational for how long? He asked Admiral Chun as they walked through corridors lined with advanced quantum computing arrays and gravitational manipulation devices. Construction began 28 years ago, Chun replied matter-of-factly. We completed the main operational sections 15 years ago, with continuous upgrades since then. This is just one of 7 similar installations throughout the outer solar system. The scope of human preparation was staggering. While the Confederation had been observing Earth and cataloging humanity's apparent technological development, an entirely separate civilization had been growing in the darkness beyond the outer planets. The implications for galactic politics were profound. You've been preparing for war while we thought you were barely capable of spaceflight, HFY observed. We've been preparing for survival, Chen corrected. When we discovered that the galaxy contained hostile species capable of destroying entire civilizations, we made a choice. We would either develop the means to defend ourselves, or we would accept extinction. Those were the only options. They entered the main briefing chamber, where human military leaders had assembled to discuss the political ramifications of their victory. Dr. Reeves was presenting a comprehensive analysis of the battle's strategic implications, using holographic displays to illustrate the broader galactic situation. The destruction of this Devourer fleet represents more than a tactical victory, she explained. For over 1,000 years, the Collective has been expanding through controlled territory by exploiting the Confederation's inability to mount effective resistance. Today's battle demonstrates that the Devourers are not invincible. Captain Santos added her own assessment from the military perspective. Our analysis of their tactics shows fundamental weaknesses that can be exploited. They rely heavily on psychological warfare and energy absorption, but both advantages become irrelevant when facing opponents who understand their limitations. Ambassador HFY listened to the briefing with growing amazement. The humans had not only studied Devourer capabilities in theoretical terms, they had developed specific countermeasures for every known collective advantage. Their weapons, tactics, and strategic doctrine have been designed from the ground up to fight and defeat the galaxy's most feared predators. The question now, Admiral Chen said, turning to address the Confederation representative directly, is what happens next. The Devourers know that one of their fleets has been destroyed, but they don't yet know by whom or how. That gives us a strategic advantage, but only if we use it wisely. The truth was that humanity's victory over the Devourers represented a fundamental shift in galactic politics. For centuries, the Confederation had maintained peace through careful negotiation and strategic retreat when faced with superior force. They had built their civilization on the principle that conflict could be avoided through diplomacy and technological superiority. But the Devourers had proven that principle false. No amount of negotiation could dissuade a species dedicated to absorption and conquest, and technological superiority meant nothing if you lacked the will to use it effectively. The Confederation had forgotten how to fight, and their enemies had taken advantage of that weakness. What do you propose? HFY asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Admiral Chun activated a new holographic display showing the current political situation throughout the galaxy. Devourer territory was marked in red, spreading like a cancer through regions that had once been peaceful Confederation space. Other hostile species, emboldened by Confederation weakness, had begun expanding their own territories and testing the limits of peacekeeping forces. We propose an alliance, Chen said simply. Humanity will share our military technology and tactical expertise with the Confederation. In exchange, we want full membership in galactic civilization and access to your scientific and cultural achievements. It was a bold proposal, one that would reshape the fundamental structure of galactic politics. Humanity was offering to become the Confederation's military arm, providing the martial strength that their peaceful civilization had never developed. The Confederation Council will need to debate this proposal extensively, HFY said carefully. Many species have concerns about introducing military technologies to a civilization that has not yet demonstrated long-term peaceful intentions. Dr. Reeves laughed, a sound that held no humor. Ambassador, with respect, your Confederation has been at war with the Devourers for over a century. You've lost dozens of worlds and billions of lives because you refuse to fight effectively. Meanwhile, humanity has never attacked another species or initiated unprovoked aggression. The irony was stark. The peaceful Confederation was actively engaged in a losing war, while the aggressive humans had never started a conflict with another species. Humanity's military preparations had been entirely defensive, designed to protect their world from threats they had observed but never directly encountered. There's another consideration, Captain Santos added. The Devourers will investigate the destruction of their fleet. When they discover that humanity was responsible, they'll target Earth for complete annihilation. We need allies, and the Confederation needs protection from a threat they've proven incapable of handling alone. This was the crux of the strategic situation. Humanity's victory had made them a target for Devourer retaliation, while simultaneously demonstrating that they possessed capabilities the Confederation desperately needed. Both species faced existential threats that could only be addressed through cooperation. Ambassador HFY spent the next several hours touring human facilities and reviewing technical data that challenged everything he thought he knew about technological development. The human approach to engineering was fundamentally different from Confederation standards, emphasizing practical application over theoretical elegance. Your weapons systems appear crude compared to our energy projectors, he observed while examining a displacement cannon, but their effectiveness is undeniable. That's intentional, Dr. Reeves explained. We designed our technology to appear primitive while maximizing lethality. Aesthetic considerations were secondary to combat effectiveness. This philosophy extended throughout human military technology. Their ships looked angular and industrial compared to the organic curves preferred by most species, but their weapons could punch through defenses that had protected Confederation world for centuries. Their tactical doctrines emphasized aggressive action over defensive posturing, and their strategic planning focused on winning conflicts rather than avoiding them. The Council will want to see complete technical specifications, HFY said eventually. They'll need to understand exactly what capabilities humanity is offering to share. Admiral Chen nodded. We're prepared to provide that information, but only to species that commit to the alliance. This technology represents humanity's primary advantage, and we won't compromise it without guarantees of reciprocal support. The negotiation that followed would reshape galactic civilization. Over the next several days, human and Confederation representatives worked to establish the framework for an alliance that would combine peaceful exploration with effective defense. Humanity would provide military expertise and advanced weapons technology, while the Confederation would share their scientific achievements and provide access to galactic civilization. The first test of the new alliance came sooner than expected. Long-range sensors detected multiple Devourer fleets moving toward Confederation space, apparently responding to the loss of their scout force by launching a major offensive. The collective had decided that whatever had destroyed their ships represented a threat that needed to be eliminated immediately. 17 separate fleets, reported the tactical analysis team. Approximately 850 vessels total. They're converging on Confederation core worlds, probably intending to force a decisive engagement. It was the largest Devourer offensive in recorded history, a coordinated assault designed to break Confederation resistance once and for all. Under normal circumstances, such a force would be unstoppable. The Confederation's peacekeeping fleets were no match for even a single Devourer armada, let alone 17 of them. But circumstances were no longer normal. Admiral Chun stood before the assembled representatives of both civilizations, outlining humanity's response to the crisis. We propose a joint operation. Confederation forces will provide reconnaissance and support, while human fleets engage the Devourers directly. Our objective is not just to defeat this offensive, but to demonstrate that the collective can be beaten. The plan was ambitious beyond anything previously attempted in galactic warfare. Rather than falling back to defensive positions and try to minimize losses, the Allied forces would advance to meet the Devourer fleets in open space. Humanity would deploy its entire Dark Fleet, supported by Confederation vessels equipped with human weapons and tactical systems. This represents an enormous risk, observed Council member Trixano of the scientific cast. If the operation fails, both our civilizations could face complete destruction. If we don't act now, Chen replied, the Devourers will continue expanding until they consume the entire galaxy. This is our opportunity to break their momentum and begin pushing them back. The vote was close, but ultimately the Confederation Council approved the joint operation. The prospect of finally taking offensive action against their greatest enemy proved more compelling than the risks involved. Preparation for the largest space battle in galactic history began immediately. Human shipyards worked around the clock to retrofit Confederation vessels with displacement weapons and quantum shielding, while human tactical teams trained alien crews in advanced combat procedures. The transformation was remarkable. Within weeks, the Confederation's exploration fleets had been converted into effective fighting forces. The battle, when it came, would be remembered as the turning point in galactic civilization. 17 Devourer fleets, confident in their overwhelming numerical advantage, found themselves facing an alliance that combined Confederation resources with human military doctrine. The result was a systematic destruction of collective forces that established humanity as the galaxy's premier military power. But the victory came with consequences that neither species had fully anticipated. The complete defeat of such a large devourer force sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy, inspiring subject species to rebel while simultaneously terrifying other potential aggressors. Humanity had demonstrated that it possessed the capability to reshape galactic politics through force, and not everyone was comfortable with that reality. The galaxy is changing, Ambassador HFY observed as he prepared to return to Confederation space with the terms of the new alliance. The age of peaceful expansion and diplomatic solutions is ending. Admiral Chen nodded. Perhaps, but the age of species being consumed by predators is ending too. Sometimes change is necessary for survival. The first contact between humanity and the Galactic Confederation had ended not with humanity joining an existing order, but with the creation of an entirely new one. The Dark Fleet had struck, and the galaxy would never be the same. In the depths of space, human vessels continued their patrols, ensuring that no threat would ever again approach Earth unopposed. The children of Earth had announced themselves to the universe, and the universe had taken notice. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you threatened Earth's children.